Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm Emily, and joining me as always is John. Hey, John.
Hey, Emily. Hey, everyone. Today's episode is all about breaking down those tricky legal and immigration terms. We know navigating visa applications and immigration forms can be overwhelming, especially if English isn't your first language.
Exactly. We'll be covering key phrases and vocabulary you'll need to understand immigration forms, visa applications, and local regulations. We'll make it simple and relatable, so you'll feel more confident the next time you're handling these documents.
Yes, our goal is to make this complex information easy to understand. So if you're ready to get started, let's dive right in.
Let's start with some essential terms you'll see on a visa application. First up, the term applicant. John, what does this mean?
The applicant is simply the person applying for the visa or permit. If you're filling out the form, you're the applicant. Another word you'll often see is beneficiary. This is someone who benefits from the visa application but isn't the one applying. For example, if you're sponsoring a family member, they're the beneficiary.
Exactly. And then there's a sponsor. A sponsor is usually a person or organization that supports your application, either financially or legally. For instance, if a company wants to hire you, they become your sponsor. It's important to know if you need a sponsor, as many visa types require one.
And don't forget about petition. A petition is a formal request for something, like a visa or immigration benefit. So when you file a visa petition, you're formally asking for permission to enter or stay in the country.
Great breakdown. One more term to know is supporting documents. These are additional documents you provide with your application to prove things like your identity, relationship, or financial status. They're essential, as they back up the claims in your application.
Yes, and supporting documents can include things like birth certificates, bank statements, or letters of employment. Always double check what's required for your specific visa type so you have everything ready.
All right, now that we've covered the basics, let's move on to some general immigration terms. A big one is a status. You'll hear this a lot. Your status refers to your legal standing in the country, like whether you're a student, a worker, or a visitor.
Yes, and your status determines what you're allowed to do while you're in the country. Another key term is adjustment of status. This is the process of changing your immigration status without leaving the country. For example, if you're here on a student visa but want to apply for permanent residency, you might go through an adjustment of status.
Exactly. And then there's deportation or removal. These terms refer to being legally forced to leave the country because of a violation of immigration laws. It's a serious issue, so understanding the rules that apply to your status is crucial.
Right, and then there's naturalization, which is the process of becoming a citizen. If you're a permanent resident and want to become a citizen, you'd apply for naturalization.
Good point. And another term to know is visa waiver. This is a special program that allows citizens of certain countries to enter without a visa for short stays. However, it doesn't apply to all nationalities, so you'd need to check if you're eligible.
Exactly. Visa waivers are typically for tourism or business, and the stay is usually limited to 90 days or less. Knowing whether you qualify can save you time and paperwork.
Now let's talk about some specific documents you'll encounter. One of the most important is the I-94 form. John, can you explain what this is?
Sure. The I-94 form is a record of your arrival and departure. It tells you how long you're allowed to stay and under what conditions. You can usually access it online after you enter the country.
Right, and it's crucial to check this because it shows your official stay dates. Overstaying your I-94 can lead to serious issues. Another key document is the Employment Authorization Document, or EAD. This is a card that gives you permission to work legally while you're here.
Yes, and you'll often hear it called a work permit. If you're here on a visa that doesn't automatically allow work, like a student visa, you'd need an EAD to work legally. There's also the green card, which is officially known as a permanent resident card. It allows you to live and work permanently.
Exactly. And if you're here temporarily, you might need a temporary protected status document. This status is given to people from countries facing issues like war or natural disasters, allowing them to stay temporarily.
Lastly, there's the Notice of Action, also known as the Form I-797. This is a letter from immigration authorities letting you know the status of your application, whether it's been received, approved, or needs more information.
Yes, it's important to keep these notices because they're your proof of your application's progress. Losing them can make it difficult to track where you are in the process. Now let's share a story from one of our listeners, Anna, who recently went through the visa application process. She wrote to us about some challenges she faced and how understanding these terms made things easier. Anna writes,
I moved to the US on a student visa and eventually wanted to apply for a work visa. At first, I was overwhelmed by all the forms and legal terms. Words like petition, beneficiary, and adjustment of status were confusing. I even missed an important deadline because I didn't understand what notice of action meant. But after taking some time to research and learn these terms, everything became much clearer. I knew which documents I needed and what steps to take next. The process was still challenging, but having that vocabulary gave me confidence. I'm now on a work visa and thinking about applying for permanent residency.
That's a great story. Thanks to Anna for sharing that. It really shows how understanding the language can make a big difference.
yes, absolutely. Once Anna knew the terminology, she felt more in control. It's a good reminder to take the time to learn these terms, so you're not caught off guard by any part of the process.
And her experience with the notice of action is a good example of why paying attention to these documents is so important. Missing a deadline can delay your whole application.
Definitely. Dana's story is a great example of how knowledge is power, especially in something as complex as immigration.
All right, let's move on to local regulations. These can vary a lot depending on where you're moving to, so it's good to know some general terms. One big one is residency requirements. This refers to the rules you need to follow to live legally in a specific area, like how long you need to be present each year.
Yes, and related to that is tax residency. This means where you're considered a resident for tax purposes. Sometimes it's different from your legal residency. If you live in one country for a certain number of days, you might owe taxes there.
Another key term is labor laws. These are the regulations that govern working conditions, minimum wage, and things like overtime pay. It's crucial to understand these if you're planning to work in a new country.
Yes, and don't forget about health insurance requirements. In some countries, having health insurance is mandatory, and you might need proof of coverage for your visa application.
Exactly. One more term to know is reporting requirements. These refer to any obligations you have to inform local authorities about changes in your status, like a new job, address change, or change in visa type.
All these regulations can feel overwhelming, but understanding these terms makes it easier to follow the rules and avoid any issues. Now some quick tips on handling immigration documents. First, always keep copies of everything. Make digital backups so you don't lose anything important.
Yes, and double check all your documents before submitting them. Make sure everything is signed, dated, and complete. Missing a signature can delay your application.
Good tip. Also read each form carefully. Take your time to understand every term. If you don't know something, look it up or ask for help. Never assume.
That's crucial. And last, stay organized. Use folders to separate your documents by type, applications, notices, IDs, so you can easily find what you need.
Great advice, John. The immigration process can feel overwhelming, but with these tips and a solid understanding of the terms, you'll be better prepared to handle it all. Let's quickly recap today's episode. We covered key terms for visa applications like applicant, beneficiary, sponsor, and petition. We also talked about important immigration terms, such as status, deportation, and naturalization.
We discussed essential documents like the I-94 form, EAD, green card, and notice of action. And we heard Anna's story, which really highlighted how knowing these terms can make the process less stressful.
Absolutely. Remember, these terms are here to help you understand the process, so don't be afraid to revisit them as you go through your application.
Thanks for joining us on the English Learning Podcast. We hope this episode gave you the confidence to tackle immigration forms and applications. If you have questions, feel free to reach out.
Yes, we're here to help. And don't forget to subscribe for more episodes like this. We'll keep bringing you the tips and terminology you need to navigate life as an immigrant.
Thanks again, everyone. Keep learning, stay organized, and remember, you've got this.